like to think that our thoughts are our own and we can't be influenced. We like to think that, but obviously we're influenced all day long. And this little game is really about that, and it might make you consider those things in a slightly different way. So again, I'm going to mix these up like this. I'll look the other way. Again, as I go through, you just say stop. In fact, you don't even need to say stop. I'll just slow down so you can see a number of them. Okay. And as I'm going through, I just want you to think of any of the ones that you see. It doesn't matter. Okay. But again, I don't care what order these are in. I'll look the other way. I'll just go through. I'll slow down so you can see anyone in there. Don't say anything. So you've probably seen a few. Could you think of one? Yeah, okay. Now you could be changing your mind between those if you want, so I didn't ask you to take one out or anything like that. Now if you wanted to think of one that you didn't see, you can do that as well. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you have one in your mind only. This wasn't one I asked you to take out. This is one that you have in your mind, okay? Mm-hmm. Here's what's going to happen. Even with these mixed up like this, would you hold your hand out for me? Okay, that's it. Here's what's going to happen. Hold it like this. Just hold your fingers around the side. That's it. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to try and reach in and cut to the very card that's inside your head. Okay. Now, this is really difficult because right now you could be changing your mind. There's no way that I can know. You ready? Mm-hmm. I'm going to... Actually, I think that's too many. I'm going to go... I'm going to stop here. Okay. For the first time, what was the card you were thinking of?
The Jack of Diamonds.
Jack of Diamonds.
That's so cool. How did you do that?
I'm going to stop here. All right, for the first time, what was the card you had in your mind?
Ace Diamonds.
The Ace of Diamonds.
Pretty good. Yeah, that's good.
10 of
Hearts.
Hearts. This is where I want to stop. This is inside of your head, right?
Nah, yeah, right, bro. Yeah, right, bro. Nah, okay.
And now we'll mix them up as well, like this, and I'll go through. I'll look the other way. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Right, you should be able to think of one, okay?
Yeah.
You have one in mind?
I have one in
mind.
mind.
Here's the thing. If you want, you can just go for one that you didn't see.
Yeah, okay.
All right? So you don't have to go for one.
Great.
So the point is you just have a card in your mind only. This wasn't one I asked you to take out. This is just purely one that you should have inside your head.
I have it.
Here's the thing. Look, we even mix these up, right? Hold on to these as if you're going to deal them, right, in a game or something. And I'm going to try and reach in and cut to the very card you have inside of your head.
Okay.
And this is particularly difficult because right now you could be changing your mind and no one would know. All right?
I haven't.
All right? It doesn't matter. You can.
Okay.
All right? Here goes. Ready? I'm going to reach in. I'm going to go here. Actually, that's too many. Hang on. Try this. I'm going to stop here. Okay, ready? What card did you have in mind?
A 10 of spades.
10 of spades. So I stopped on a black 10. I topped on a 10 of clubs, right? Which is very close, isn't it?
It's very close.
It's very close. This is where it gets interesting because actually the 10 of spades wasn't one that you saw, was it?
No.
No. This wasn't, if you look through these cards, for example, you'll find that like, you'll find that there's a 10 of clubs, there's no 10 of spades. And the reason is because at the beginning, before I began, I took one out.
No.
Ready? And I put one.
I can't with this.
Like I put one in my back pocket before we began.
No.
And I said, go for one that you didn't see. That's the one I wanted you to.
Wait. Isn't that crazy? Yes.
Two of hearts is what you had in mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. This wasn't one of the ones that you saw. Because before we began, there was one card that I took out and I put in my pocket.
No way.
Right? 6 of diamonds is what you had in mind, right?
Holy shit.
There was one card I removed from the deck
It's in your bloody pocket,
before we began.
No, it isn't.
Yes.
No, it isn't.
Only one.
That's the Queen of Hearts, isn't it? Like,
Only
that Queen
one.
of Hearts. Oh my God.
6 of clubs is what you had in your head?
It was. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to go. I'm going to stop here. Right. Okay. For the first time, what was the card you had in mind?
Ace of Hearts.
Ace of Hearts. Ready? Now, this is the interesting part, right? This
Okay.
appears that it's wrong, but here's something that I know. I know that this wasn't one that you saw. Like this wasn't one as I was going through that you actually looked inside and saw. Right? You actually changed your mind to one that you didn't see.
changed my mind.
Now here's the thing. There was one card that you couldn't see. Because before I began, I actually took one out, put this in a back pocket, right? The Ace of Hearts, was that the one you saw in your head?
Don't fucking do it. Don't fucking do it. No fucking way, dude. There's no fucking way, bro. Holy shit. That was cool. What? You know, I always see this TikTok, and I assume they're in cahoots. But there's no way, because we're just getting up. There's no way, dude. There's no way. You shice. There's no way.
Octopus. Now, why is this called Octopus? Well, it's because it took me about 8 years to create this handling of Di Vernon's out of sight, out of mind. Now, I've never liked out of sight, out of mind, even though it often gets touted as a great mind-reading effect. I never liked it. I felt there was far too much procedure. There was an obvious limited selection, moving into a relatively complicated shuffle procedure, to then do a binary sort, to then have to, at the end of that whole process, still do glimpses and potential doubles, and do all this while talking just to get a card from someone's mind. It felt like a huge amount of work for not much, like laboring like an elephant to give birth to a mouse. And I thought, well, I wonder if there's a way to improve that process. And over time, I just stripped everything out of it until I was just left with the core idea. And we're going to go through that. It took me many, many years of refinement to kind of come up with something as direct as Octopus. We're going to create the impression that you really can get inside someone's mind, and there's some devious stuff going on inside of it. Really, I start this by often saying to people this. I'll say, look, we like to think that our minds are our own and we can't be influenced. We like to think that, but in actual fact, we're influenced all day long. And there's really not much we can do about that. And it's interesting because this little game that we're going to play might just make you consider that a bit more closely. And then I continue. Now, what have I really said? I mean, what I've really said is kind of true. We do like to think that our minds are our own and we can't be influenced, but we kind of know we are all day long. And there's not much we can do about it. And so this thing that we're about to do might make them consider that notion. I've really not said anything. But what it's done is it's put the idea in the air of influence and our thoughts and how much those things are our own. And I'm priming the idea that influence may be a part of it, even though I have directly stated nothing. Like most of the things that I do, I'm also kind of using a bit of honesty. You know, I like kind of talking about that stuff because it is the type of thing that I often think about. You know, how much am I influenced by others, and what type of influence do I allow in, and what's good and what's bad influence. And so again, I like to use that in this particular effect. So often I'll have them shuffle to begin with. If not, then I'll just shuffle these and I'll do a similar thing that we have done elsewhere with a peak, but we're going to change this subtly. So I'll say, look, I'll go through. Can you see those in there? If I did, yes, you probably can. As I go through, I'm just going to kind of slow down so that you can see a number of them. And all I want you to do is just think of one. It doesn't matter which, I won't look, but I'll just slow down. And as I go through, I'll actually do this for the camera here. I'm going to go through the cards like this, and then all of a sudden, I just want you to think of one like this. We do this and close up. And really, all you've got at this point from this, in this example, is access to 3. which were these three. Let's put them here so you can see them. Now, the reason is because instead of going through and having someone say stop, like this, instead all I'm going to do is I'm going to go through to somewhere and I stop, and then I just allow one to go off and then another one to go off. And this means that they've only really seen three, as I then close up like this. So often I'll also say, oh, you know, don't think of this card here, just think of one inside, it doesn't matter, I'll allow you to see a number of them. So I just do this, I stop, in this case you see a 5 of spades, I allow 2 to come off, I hold a break and I let it go. So at this point I have 2 potential cards that they could be thinking of under the break and 1 above the break. And this is, normally at this point I'll say to them, now, you know, you probably saw a number of them, like it doesn't matter, as long as you have one in mind, it really doesn't matter. In fact, you don't even have to go for one of the ones you saw. You can think of one of the ones you didn't see. It really doesn't matter what card you have in mind. You can think of anything. As long as you have a playing card locked inside of your head, that's all that matters. Now, this process here is very interesting because in this moment, I apparently have just been very free and open with the fact they can think of anything. But right now I have the 3 potential cards they could have chosen from the deck on top. And there's, well, they could have been also thinking of anyone because I've just given them that option. I've said, or you could think of one you didn't see. You can think of anyone you like, it doesn't really matter. The reason why that is so important to me is because what it actually does most of the time is makes them go, oh, okay, I can think of anyone, in which case it doesn't matter. All of the cards are equivalent. So now, even the ones that they saw now feel fairer. And it feels like these were just examples of them to see some cards, and that was it. So what it does is it sets me up for a potential really interesting ending for an out if they think of anything random. But it makes, if they do choose one of the other ones, it makes it feel completely free and fair. Because when I get it at the end, they'll think to themselves, well, you said I could think of anything. How did you know? So it's very devious, this particular sequence. And what we've done is get rid of pretty much all of the mess from any of the original versions that existed. And just got straight to the heart of what we're dealing with here, which are the thoughts inside someone's head. So I come up, I do this, I stop somewhere inside, I allow 2 to come off like this, and I then hold a break. Do all the things we talked about before, I squeeze it up, I do this, sometimes I'll just spread off or do something. And at some point I say, no, I didn't, you don't have to go for one of the ones you saw, or I'll say, I didn't want you to pick one out, I just want you to think one. And again, I'm going to re-engage, like I said before, and I'm going to get a break now over that last card, okay? Because I'm holding a break now, 2 of those selections are under the break and one of them is above the break, and I've got to get access to it. So I spread to the break, I know it's here, and I then pull it across, get a break over it, and I go back like this. Now in this moment, I can either do a Mahatma shuffle, or I can do a pass as I'm talking to them, and then I might do a stop control shuffle, saying it doesn't matter what card you have in mind. In fact, you can think of one of the ones that you didn't see. Okay, it doesn't really matter as long as you have a card in mind. That's all that matters. This makes it feel completely free and fair. And yet I now have those 3 cards on top of the deck. So at this stage, think about it. They're either thinking of one of those 3, of which you don't know which one it is, or they're thinking of a completely random one. And that one might scare you a bit, but it shouldn't, and we'll get to why in a second. So I'm gonna say, okay, great. Would you hold on to these for me? And this is after I've given these a shuffle as well, a stop control shuffle. So even if someone was thinking that you could know what it is, I mean, it looks completely chaotic and random, and I just hand it to them. They hold this in their hands like this. I say, now the idea is I'm gonna try and cut to the card that you're thinking of. I'm gonna cut directly to it. Now the hard thing about this is that you could be changing your mind right now. That's what makes this so difficult. At this very moment, you could be changing your mind. Now, often when they're doing that, they're actually changing their mind between the 3 that they saw. If not, they might change to another one. It doesn't matter. I don't really care. But it also sets up this idea for them and everyone thinking, well, he was kind of giving them permission. They're thinking, well, how could you possibly do this? This person could be changing their mind right now. This feels like there's no way that you could gain access to the card that's in their mind, okay? So they have this on their hand, okay? Now I'm going to reach over. This is on their hand. Remember, I'm going to reach over like this. You can see this on the side camera, and I'm just going to grab about half of them, a big bunch of them, often more than half, like that. I put them in my hand like this, and I immediately say, oh, no, that's too much. And I actually take, and these are all the selections, I'm going to take all of them back and put them on there and go, that's too many. And then I go, oh, actually, I think I need a couple more. I pick up this one, and as I do, I peek it. It's the 8 of diamonds. Pick up this one. This is the Jack of clubs. I go to pick this, and I say, no, I'll stop there. Okay? This is a really efficient and effective way to have apparently cut to a position in the deck, when in fact, these are just the top cards that you'd controlled there. Yet it feels like you've cut somewhere inside. Okay? So there's many layers of deviousness, which I like to this particular routine. So now I say, okay, I'm going to stop there. For the first time, what was your card? Now, there's a number of things they could say. If they say the Jack of clubs, I know I have that right on top here. And this appears to be where I stopped, right here. So I can sit back, take this like this, turn this over and show that's where I've cut. If they say the 8 of diamonds, I can come back and I can perform a double lift, showing the 8 of diamonds, okay? Or what you can do is if you go to perform a double lift, you actually do that push off like this. It's a little cheeky bonus because we didn't teach this in the thing, but you can basically do a second deal, which is as you come forward like this, I'm going to now pull that top card back as I now look at it, and then I put it back here. And this looks as if you've just kind of leant back and checked the card yourself before then turning it over, when in actual fact you've executed a second deal. So now I've got that 8 of diamonds second. Imagine they say the 8 of diamonds, I go, okay, 8 of diamonds, and show, okay? So that's one way you can do it. Or like I said, they could say the 8 of diamonds and you can just turn this over showing that you've cut to their card, right? So you can use that double if you really want. Now, what if they say one that you don't know? Because you haven't peeked this last one. If they don't say the 8 of diamonds or the Jack of clubs, then it is either here, that's the other one that I haven't peeked, or it's randomly one of the other ones, okay? We'll deal with the random one in a second. If I say another one that I don't know, I lean forward and I go, okay, wait, look, I just turn this over slowly. If they'd said the Queen of diamonds, boom, then there it is. Even though I didn't know that was the Queen of diamonds, I'm basically edging my bets that it was one of those 3. So we run through that procedure again very quickly, simply. These are given a shuffle. We like to think that our thoughts are our own. You can't be influenced, but this game might make you reconsider aspects of that or think about it a bit more closely. In fact, if I do this, can you see them in there? Yes, you can. Okay, I'll give these a mix. I'll look the other way. I'll just go through and allow you to see some so that you can just think of one. It doesn't matter which, just think of one. Okay, I'll just show you a few from inside, somewhere in there. Hopefully you've got one. You do? Okay, I didn't want you to take one out. I just wanted you to think of one. In fact, you don't even have to think of one of the ones you saw. If you want to think of one that you didn't see, that's perfectly okay. You just have to have a card in your mind. That's all that matters, right? And at this stage, I have all 3 of those on top, okay? In this case, an ace, ace, and a 5. All right, now here's the difficult bit. You hold on to this. I give this to them. I want to try and cut to the very card that's inside of your head. This is particularly difficult, by the way, because you could be changing your mind as we speak. And this puts them in the position of thinking, oh my God, how is this going to happen? Bang, cut these off. Remember, all of those selections are now here. Oh, nope, that's too many. I put them back. No, I need a couple more. Peek, peek. I've seen a 5 and an ace of clubs. So in this case, if they said the 5 of diamonds, I would sit back and just check it, do that second deal and show that 5 of diamonds. If they said the ace of clubs, I would say, look, turn this over, look, show the ace of clubs. And if they said another one, which might be that ace, I wouldn't know, I haven't peeked it, I turn over and I do this, and we have that there, okay? This creates this real impression, because even if it's one of the ones they saw, the fact that you gave them the option, you said you don't have to have one of the ones you saw, you go for one of the ones you didn't see. It doesn't matter. Anyone, as long as you have one in mind. At this stage, they think, well, what if I had have just gone for one of the ones that I didn't see? They feel it would have ended the same way. That choice makes these feel 10 times more powerful, okay? And that's why I like this so much. So that's a large part of Octopus. Now, what happens though if they say a random one? and they don't know what that is, and we don't know where that is, okay? So imagine they say, I don't know, 6 of diamonds, doesn't matter what it is. So if they said the 6 of diamonds, I go, okay, the 6 of diamonds. It might be this one because this is the one I didn't peek. I go to turn it over, I do this, and I go, this is really interesting. I say different things. I say, it's really interesting. This might appear like it's gone wrong, but there's something that I know. I know that this wasn't one of the ones that you actually saw inside the deck. You know, this wasn't one when I had them up here, you didn't see this. You actually just went for one of the ones you didn't see, correct? You just changed your mind and went for a random one. And they're like, yes. And you say, well, remember I said you could go for one that you didn't see? Yeah, well, there was only one you couldn't see. And that's because I took it out of the deck at the very beginning. You hand this to them, you turn this over, and it's the 6 of diamonds. And now it just feels like an absolute mindfuck because they're like, oh my God, that wasn't even one that I saw. I just kind of changed, I just had that idea in my head and I went for that one. And that was the only one that I couldn't see. You know, oh my God, that's insane. So it sets up this idea for the out. The scripting at the beginning creates this almost inevitable sense that this was always going to be the ending. But if not, if this isn't the ending, then all that seemed like was fairness, and it makes all of the other cards feel that much cleaner. Either way, this particular effect will mess with their head. Now, let me talk to you about how to actually structure that moment for a second. So we've done the peak, we've done this, we've done the control. We have those to the top of the deck. We've given these a shuffle, so I have all 3 of them on top, whatever they may be. Hand this to them, all 3 are on top. I'm going to cut to the card that's inside of your head, which is particularly difficult because you could be changing your mind as we speak. I cut this up and I go, oh, no, that's too many. I put at least those 3 back. That's too, actually a couple more. Now I peek, here, I'm going to stop here. Okay. They name a card that isn't one of the 2 that I've peeked. I turn this over. It's not it. Well, there's something I know. And this is what's really interesting. Like I said, this appears that this might have gone wrong. Now, what I actually do here is often we'll just place this on top here because I now know it's not one of these 3. Okay. And then I just put them on the top here. This means that now I'm going to have to look for the cards, their card that they've named. At least it's not one of these 3. So the closest it could be is there. But at least I've kind of in my head taken some of those, having to search all the way through out, only by a tiny amount, but that's what I do. But the point is, when I say it's really interesting, this wasn't one of the ones you saw. Now, let's say, for example, they named, I don't know, name one inside, the Ace of Diamonds. So I say, it's really interesting because this wasn't one of the ones that you actually saw inside the deck. And now I'm looking for that Ace of Diamonds, and I can handle this a number of ways. Often I can use the cull here, so I can cull it and say this wasn't one of the ones that you saw. And they often will laugh because they think, how did you know that? Now, from our perspective, or my perspective, it's quite clear how I know that. I know this wasn't one of the ones that they saw because those 3 are the only ones here that I've got access to. But they think, how could you know that? As a result, it makes them laugh. It makes them feel that you're inside their head already, just by saying this wasn't one of the ones that you saw. You changed your mind. You went for one that you didn't see. You went for a random one. They're like, how do you know that? Trust me, that moment alone is enough to create the misdirection you need to spread through and cull, that in this case, the Ace of Diamonds to the top. So often I will cull it and I will spread and I'll say, this wasn't one of the ones that you saw. I see it inside. We can see this on the overhead, and I will just see it and cull it and say, this, you didn't see this inside anywhere. In fact, there is no Ace of Diamonds. Because I said you could go for one of the ones you didn't see. And as I'm doing that, I'm now going to come over and top palm that Ace of Diamonds. And there was only one that you couldn't see because I took it out. I reached into a pocket. I took it out of the deck before we began. And then this is handed to them. This just feels like a complete mindfuck. They have no idea what's going on. You can see from the performances and the reactions what that does to people. It really feels like you're inside of their head. It feels like you're saying you can think of anything you want. You can change your mind. It doesn't matter. Go for one you didn't see. I'm going to cut to what's inside of your head, which is hard because you could be changing your mind. It doesn't matter. You do what you want. You know, it feels like you've given all of the control to them mentally, and yet you've successfully resolved it and specifically resolved it by either initially just turning a card over and going, it's here, or even when they changed their mind, there was only one that you wouldn't have been able to see, and it's this one. It feels like you really have got inside of their head, or at least influenced them. And based on what you said at the beginning with that hook, the idea we like to think that our thoughts can't be influenced, even though, of course, they can. And this little thing might make you think about that. Maybe this game does. Maybe it does make them think about it. And I like playing with that notion. One quick thing I'll say, I don't always cull. Sometimes, as you'll notice actually in the explanation here, I talked through, I saw it, and I just cut the deck as I then turned them around and said this wasn't one that you could see. You can do this right in front of people and cut as you move your hands apart, just by moving them like this, get into this position, just cutting as you turn. They won't see it. If your attitude doesn't feel like you're looking for the card. So in this case, when I look through, I'm saying, this is interesting. This wasn't one of the ones that you saw inside. This was you just kind of made one up, and I've culled a 9 of spades here to the back. It feels like the reason for me searching is I'm saying this wasn't one of the ones that you saw inside, right? This wasn't. It feels like there's a reason I'm showing them this wasn't one of these. It doesn't feel like I'm looking for the card they've named. Only we know that because that's our method to deal with that out. After giving them such freedom, they don't know that. So your attitude, all you have to do is watch some of the performances as well, and you'll see me handle that in some ways. We've intentionally in the performance shown areas where it's hit on their side, where it's hit on my side, and where I've done the palm. Many of you out there will probably think, oh, I hope they go for this, and then I don't have to do the palm. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing the opposite of that. I want to give them so much freedom that I'm really almost forcing them to change their mind. I want to do the quote unquote out, because to me, it isn't an out. To me, that's actually what I'm gearing towards. And there are ways where I've taken that concept and there's some effects where I actually just use the quote unquote out because it's that powerful. To me, what it does though is there's a formula within it, which means that I have this really nice handling, this like subtle variation of potential within inside. Then it can move up to something that could be anything within the deck. And there's this really interesting kind of contrast between them. And it seems to make both feel more powerful. I really, really love it. I would just, look at the performance, look at what I'm talking about in this explanation. And if you can master things like the fingertip peek, the control of individual cards, doing those moves such as Mahatmas or re-engaging the kind of breaks and shuffles or the glimpses or whatever it is, I'm not really trying to do them in any other style apart from casual and conversational. And it's flowing with the natural rhythms of my language. If I'm doing that, what I'm really doing is hiding everything. That's how you hide everything. You hide it in plain sight. If I actually try and hide stuff, you'll smell it. If I just talk to you and do it out in the open, you'll sense nothing. And so Octopus is doing that. It's hiding right out in the open. And it will really make people feel that you've got inside of their head. So have fun. It can feel a bit scary to do. But just treat that last part. And also there's another thing I'll quickly say. The more you push towards really truly giving them that freedom to change their mind and say, oh, by the way, you don't have to go for one of the ones you saw. You can go for one of the ones you didn't see. It doesn't matter as long as you have one in mind. Ironically, it makes them go for the ones that they saw more often because they realize, oh, I can just think of anything. Well, you know what? They're all equivalent then, in which case I'll just think of one of the ones that I saw because at least I know that card exists. I can remember that's the 8 of diamonds is in there somewhere. I'll do that. But you in that moment have made them all equivalent. So the more you double down on giving them that freedom, ironically, it often makes them stick towards those cards. And they are no less impressed because at the end, even if they did go for one, they go, well, what? You said I could think of anything. What if I thought of anything? They don't really even make the connection that there's a difference between thinking of anything and thinking of one of the ones they saw. You've already made them equivalent in their minds by the kind of casualness of your statements. And so for me, that's what Octopus is doing. It really is influencing and manipulating someone's thoughts within the structure of this game. It is far more direct and deliberate. It's done in their hands. It feels like they're integrated into the experience. And if you want to have an effect that is designed to mess with someone's mind out there in the open, then look no further than Octopus. Allow it to wrap its 8 slimy tendril legs around you and take you into a nice mind cephalopod embrace. Or what is an octopus? I don't know. It's an alien-looking creature. You all seem like an alien after doing this effect. Go and mess with minds.